And tonight, for the final part of my special series on capital punishment in Alabama, I sat down with Jefferson County District Attorney Danny Carr to take us inside that process and explain who has a voice when life and death are on the table.
You know, the first role of a DA is obviously to make charging decisions. But the main part of that is you make sure that the guilty doesn't go free, but also that the innocent doesn't suffer. Meaning that if there's not enough evidence, if there's probable cause don't exist, then you not bring charges. But if probable cause does exist, and you believe it's ripe for charges, then you bring those charges and then let the system flow as it may.
Many people believe prosecutors simply decide whether someone should face death. But Carr told me the decision isn't that simple. He says Alabama law defines which cases are eligible and prosecutors follow those legal standards.
If a case qualifies as a death eligible case, then we charge it as such. We don't determine whether this one is one or this one is one. We charge them all capitally. In capital murder, just because it's charged capitally doesn't mean that it's death eligible. It means sometimes that the minimum is life without parole as well. There are certain elements that you have to meet to get to the point of an individual being eligible for the death penalty, meaning there's an intentional homicide coupled with a dangerous inherent felony.
But even when a case legally qualifies, there's another voice at the table, the victim's family. Under Alabama's Victims' Rights Act, prosecutors must consult with them before moving forward.
The Victims' Rights Act requires us to involve the victim's family, the immediate family, in the decisions as well. In other words, they play a role in that determination. We've had cases where individuals were killed. It was a death eligible case, but the family didn't believe in the death penalty. The family talked with us. The family did not want us to seek the death penalty. The family was fine with life without parole. We have the discretion to take death off the table in those instances, and we have.
Carr points to the 2022 Vestavia Hills church shooting, a case he says was legally eligible for the death penalty. But after meeting with surviving family members, his office chose a different path.
That was clearly a death eligible case, but after meeting with the family representatives, meeting with some of the priests and everybody that's involved, they did not feel that that was ripe for a death punishment per se. They were fine with life without parole. And because of that, death was taken off the table.
Those decisions also changed the timeline. Death penalty cases require years of additional preparation, including mitigation specialists, mental health evaluations, and lengthy appeals. When death is removed as a possibility, cases can reach resolution much faster.
Truth of the matter is, if it's a death case and you're going forward with the death penalty, it takes that case longer to get to trial because there are so many factors. You have to have mitigation experts, all these things that are involved as relates to a trial. If death is taken off the table, based on the conversation with the victim's family, then the trial occurs quicker. So there are pros and cons relative to whether or not a case goes forward as a death case versus a life without parole case.
When asked whether Alabama gets the death penalty right or why the state carries out more executions than most of the country, Carr did decline to offer an opinion. Instead, he pointed to one change he believes has strengthened the system: the end of judicial override. Today, a judge can no longer overrule a jury's decision for life without parole and impose a death sentence.
The new improvement, in my opinion, is that now judicial override is no longer an option, meaning that back in the day, when I first started doing this job, judges could override a jury's verdict. A jury verdict would technically be advisory, meaning we return a verdict of guilt, right? That's a binding verdict. Now, for the punishment phase, they're determining life without parole or death. If they come back death, life without parole, a judge can override that and say, no, I think you got it wrong, this is a death case. Now that's not the case. A jury, 10 of those 12 people has to vote for death in order for a death sentence to be levied. So I think when they say a jury of your peers, a jury has to make that determination.
And that concludes our four-part series on capital punishment in Alabama, from the execution chamber, voices of faith, and the prosecutors who help determine which cases ultimately get there. Tonight's execution put a real time ending on a question we've spent the week examining. How does a state arrive at its ultimate punishment? and who has a voice along the way. You can watch this entire series on abc3340.com.